My video today is on a topic that's a little bit controversial and kind of gross, but is an interesting one. And I think it's something that every home gardener should at least know about, think about it, and make a choice whether it's something or not you want to apply to your gardening. And what I'm talking about today in my video is I'm going to drink this tea, and probably in a couple hours from now I'm going to pee it out. Well, not in this form, but as urine. And my video today is going to be about using human urine as a fertilizer. The pros, the cons, the information I've gathered, and how to do it. So, I wrote some stuff down, and got some stuff on my phone here. So I'm going to, I tried to find my whiteboard. I thought I'd do it up on a whiteboard and make a cool little thing, but all I could find was an old cork poster board. So I'm just using some paper, a Sharpie, and a poster board, and we'll get it done that way. So come along with me. Let's learn about using some pee. And if you're grossed out by this, you probably have already clicked close on the video, or probably just completely bypassed watching this video anyway. So yeah, let's run through the whole thing, and I'll give you my information that I found, which I trust to be true, and also my opinions. And I encourage you guys to research this topic yourself, get educated on it, and yeah, as with all things in life, you know, investigate, proceed with caution, but remember that contempt prior to investigation is the greatest form of ignorance. Pretty good one, hey? I didn't make that up. I wish I did. Okay, so using urine as a fertilizer. The pros. Well, number one, it's free. We all make it. We all pee. So that's a very good thing. Chemical fertilizers, you know, they if you buy inorganic salt fertilizers, which are the cheapest and most potent fertilizers out there, I would say, compared to organic fertilizers. Yeah, chemical fertilizers, although fairly cheap, are still not that cheap. For example, this 2020 all-purpose fertilizer, I think I spent about $15, maybe less, maybe 12. I can't remember. It's been a while. But yeah, not free, whereas pee is free. Second thing, NPK of urine is approximately 11 parts nitrogen, 1 part phosphorus, 1 part phosphorus, and 2 parts potassium. And that's just an approximate thing, because obviously depending on what you're eating, that will change what the nutrient content of urine is. But it's normally about that for a Western diet. And what will increase the nitrogen is if you eat a lot of meat or protein. If you get a lot of protein in your diet, your pee is going to have a higher nitrogen value. But 11-1-2 is pretty good, and that's fresh urine. Okay, so I just made a little amendment to my sheet, and I put fresh next to NPK, so that's fresh urine. 11 parts nitrogen, 1 part phosphorus, 2 parts potassium. But as you store urine, these nutrient values change along with other nutrients in the urine, minerals which are good for plants. So I'm just gonna excuse me. I'm just gonna list off which ones starts to decrease the longer you store the urine. So your nitrogen is gonna stay the same, but what's gonna happen is when you pee it out and it's fresh, it's mostly in the form of urea. As you store urine, the urea is converted into ammonium. If you have it stored in an open container, just like sitting in a bucket, that ammonium is then going to turn into ammonia gas, and it's going to smell. It's going to smell very bad. And that can happen too with a compost pile. A really nitrogen-rich compost pile gives off an ammonia smell, because the same kind of thing is going on. But if you store your urine in a airtight storage tank, you're not going to get a smell off of it. But back to the nutrients. So that's it, fresh. And then also, fresh urine, whilst having good levels of nitrogen and some phosphorus and potassium, you also have some sulfate. You have sodium, which can be a bad thing. Especially if you have a high salt diet, you're going to have a lot of sodium in your urine. And if you're in an area that, if you're container gardening, or if you're in an arid region which doesn't get a lot of rain flowing through the soil, you have to be worried about salt buildup. So sodium, something you got to consider. But so you got sodium in there. You also have magnesium, chloride, and calcium. But as you store urine, the nitrogen value will stay the same, but it will be in a different form. It'll be in an ammonium form, but that is okay, because there's bacteria and microbes in the soil which can convert that into usable nitrogen for your plants. It's the same as in aquaponics. You know, you have ammonia, and it's the same thing goes on. Fish pee, you know, is then converted into usable form by bacteria in your soil. And yeah, in this case we're just talking about human pee, but it's the same kind of idea. So nitrogen will stay about the same, but your phosphorus is going to decrease over time. You'll still end up with phosphorus in there, but you'll lose about half of it. Your sulfate, that'll stay the same. Your sodium will decrease, which is a good thing, based on how long you have it. Magnesium, that's going to drop. It can go down to 0 if you have it stored for a very long time. Your chloride is going to drop, and your calcium is going to drop, and that can drop to 0 if you store it for a long time. Now, you might be wondering, well, what's a long time? And, you know, the thing is, what I've kind of found is there's not a lot of good research out there, exact scientific stuff about the use of human urine as a fertilizer. Because in Western agriculture and stuff, it's just not done. There are some places when they're doing it as trials, and lots of people have experience anecdotally. You know, they could say, "Oh yeah, I've been using urine as a fertilizer. It works great." You know, but what? Excuse me. When it comes down to the real values of the different nutrients and minerals and what's going on in the soil and how long it takes for things to break down and whatnot, there's not a lot of exact information, at least that I couldn't find. But yeah, you got 11-1-2 when it's fresh, and then as you store it, you're gonna lose your phosphorus. It's gonna drop, you know, down, and your potassium's gonna drop a little bit as well. So urine, in a nutshell, is a nitrogen-rich fertilizer. With a little bit of other stuff going on, but its big thing going for it is it's a nitrogen booster. So another thing that's good about it is it's always available. You know, you might need fertilizer in a hurry for a plant or for some whatever, and you know, you can't go to the store and buy fertilizer, so you can make it yourself. Another pro is reducing sewage. So rather than pumping all that urine down into the sewage plants where they gotta treat it and make it into safe or safer water to put into the waterways, you're applying it to your garden. So it's it's like recycling stuff instead of throwing it into the landfill. That kind of idea. Okay, and then number 5, safe. And I put a question mark beside that because your urine is only going to be as safe as what you're putting into your body. Like everything else you excrete, it's going to have different composition based on what you put into yourself. So, you know, what you eat, what you drink, what medications you take, drugs, alcohol, all that kind of stuff, you got to take that into consideration. And from what I've found through research is they're not really sure about what the effects are of using urine if you're taking medications, or you know, drugs, whatever. It's they don't really know what the implications are. I would say I think it's okay. I think most things that we take, our body breaks them down into byproducts which are not toxic. But I am not a doctor. I am not a urine expert. So with that, that's why I put that question mark there. Because you might decide, I don't want to risk putting this stuff in my soil if it's got trace amounts or if it's got byproducts from toxic substances, which is kind of ironic because we're putting them in our body in one form and then we're worried about putting them on our garden after they've passed through us. But it's something to consider. And also another thing with the safety is pathogens. Healthy people, their urine is sterile and is free of pathogens. But you can have, if you have infections, or you can have pathogens in your urine. Storing your urine, just storing it in a sealed container, that period of time with the urea being converted to ammonium, your pH is going to increase, and if you increase the temperature a little bit too, that will kill off pathogens and viruses. They say if you store urine for 6 months, it's completely free of pathogens and viruses, just by storing it at a temperature between 4 degrees Celsius and 20 degrees Celsius. Final point there for pro is neutral. And again, that's with, kind of normal, healthy urine. When it's fresh, it's neutral pH, so you don't have to worry about affecting the pH of your soil. But again, I did put the question mark there because if you're going to store your urine, the pH is going to increase, it's going to become more alkaline, and it can get up to a level of 9. So again, it's just something to consider, like the sodium, like the nitrogen value. You need to dilute it. You can apply urine fresh to certain plants, but you run a bit of a risk. It's generally suggested that you dilute your urine before you apply it to your plants, and that's fresh urine or stored urine. Dilute it before you apply it to your plants. Okay, so let's get talking about the cons. Well, number one, gross. It's pee. Um, you don't really, we don't like the idea that we're eating food, or we're working soil that's got urine on it. But, a lot of us were perfectly fine to use composted manure, aquaponic growing, from fish poop and pee, we don't have a problem with. So, it's really about just changing your mindset, because, yeah, it seems kind of gross, but honestly, if you look at a compost bin full of food scraps, it looks gross too, but that's making really good organic compost for your soil. So, and the same as if you're doing vermicompost. People see hundreds of worms slithering all over each other, chomping down on rotting food, and they go, "That's disgusting. I don't want to have anything to do with that." But it's a organic, way of getting fertilizer. So if you can get past that ick factor, then, that con, not really a big deal. Number two, not safe. And I put a question mark there. Again, you can have pathogens, viruses, you can have toxins in your urine, which you don't want to be putting into your soil and growing your plants in. But again, like I said, I couldn't find a lot of definitive research out there on, what's the effect of taking certain medicine and how that comes out in your pee and how safe or unsafe it is to add to your soil. More research really needs to be done into it. So the not safe part, again, I'd say that's a personal call. It's something you got to decide for yourself. Do I think my urine is fairly safe? Am I willing to put it on my soil and grow plants in it? And you could always think, you know what? I'm not going to put it on my edible plants, but I'll fertilize my flowers or my lawn or trees or whatever. You could fertilize with it, and then your edible plants, you could use fertilizers which you're more certain of their safety. So don't get too put off by the idea that your urine might be toxic or unsafe. Third one, smell. And again, I put a question mark there. You're going to get a smell if you store your urine in an open container. Like I said, the urea converts to ammonium, which then converts to ammonia gas, and it stinks. But if you put that urine in an airtight container, you're not going to get any smell coming off of it. It might smell a bit when you dump it out or when you're diluting it into with your water, but it might smell a bit, so that is a con. But again, if you're keeping it in an airtight container, smell shouldn't be too much of an issue. Finally, I put as a con, just the whole handling, dilution, and storage. It's a lot easier to just pee into the toilet and flush it than it is to, pee into a jug or, some kind of container that you can seal with a lid, and then you gotta dump it out and mix it with water and dilute it. And if you plan on doing this a lot, you're probably going to need some kind of storage container. So it's just, it's a bit more of a hassle storing large quantities of liquid urine than it is to have, a bag or a tub of chemical fertilizer, salt fertilizer in its powder form. So that I put as a con. So finally, how to use urine. So whether it be fresh or stored, they recommend dilution ratios. I've seen 1 to 5, 1 to 10, or 1 to 20. So that's urine to water. So again, there's different opinions out there. There's different advice based on what plants you're growing. Some plants are nitrogen hogs. Corn, asparagus,
they love nitrogen. They can mow down on a lot of nitrogen. So you probably want to go with a dilution ratio of like 1 to 5 with if you're watering those kind of plants. And then with other plants that are going to be more sensitive to levels of nitrogen, and then also remember that your urine has sodium in it, so that is another thing that you need to be diluting and you need to be thinking about. Yeah, plants that are more sensitive, you want to dilute it more. But urine, using as a fertilizer, I think it's definitely something every gardener should think about. And another use for it, if you're not going to apply it to your plants, because of its high nitrogen content, if you want to get a compost pile going, and if you want to boost it and it needs a nitrogen boost, adding urine to your compost pile is a great thing. So if you have, if you're trying to make compost with mostly carbon-rich organic matter, you can use urine as a high nitrogen source to get that compost cooking and breaking down. I'd say that's also a good way to go, because the process of composting tends to just buffer and filter out things that we don't want to have high amounts of in our soil. When you're adding urine fresh to your plants, you know, it hasn't gone through any organisms to alter it, to break it down in any way. It's just coming basically straight from you into your soil. And I think that's especially something you need to be careful of if you're container gardening, because what you add into that pot is going to stay in that pot, other than the stuff the plant uses up. So, kind of a information-packed video, and yeah, I hope I haven't grossed anyone out. Like I said, just do some research yourself. I've tried to pass on some information in this video, but there is tons and tons of info out there, lots of opinions and stories and people's uses and what some people say and what other people say. So I'm presenting this with, like I said, proceed with caution, research it yourself, and just be open-minded to it at least. But if it's not for you, and if you have a system that's working fine and you have no needs to get any other forms of fertilizer, then yeah, just ignore this. But I'm guessing those people probably won't be watching this video. People who are watching this video are probably going to be people like me, who at one point was like, hey, I've heard you can use urine as a fertilizer. How do I go about doing it? What do I need to know? So I'm going to basically end off by saying I've given you some info, and really this video is just to get you thinking and get a conversation started. I'm not saying everyone out there should be using their urine as a fertilizer for growing or to add to your compost pile or whatever. All I'm saying is at least look at it as an option if it appeals to you, but do the research yourself, because ultimately it's your garden, it's your food, it's your plants. You have to be comfortable and you have to be okay with what you're doing. And I think that applies to most things in life. Do the research and make informed decisions. Don't just do something based on somebody saying, hey, I do this, you should do it, it's a good idea. Well, look into all the different sides and make an informed decision. But take care, everyone.